Who am I? I'm God in the flesh. Subatomic particles, molecules and breath. 528 hertz frequency is radiating from the left region of my chest. Daughter of the dust, portal open chest. Jump into oblivion when I say the words trust me. Must be some kind of wonderful to see black space and stardust right in front of you. I am barely one of you. Time traveling rhyme patterns form another view. Fluid creation, fluent in equations. Moving out of stillness, making universal statements. I am water with a vibrating aura. Flyest light beam of the highest ranking order. I speak life, full moons at midnight. Magic at the altar, pure music, hidden rights. Quartz crystal, reflections of the spectrum. Magnetic force field, two poles in connection. Pulses of energy, bionic symmetry. The bond between universes, ionic synergy. I'm planets, dark matter, finite and infinity. First mother, back at it, the divine femininity. First mother, back at it, the divine femininity.
Who am I? I'm God in the flesh. Subatomic particles, molecules and breath. 528 hertz frequency is radiating from the left region of my chest. Daughter of the dust, portal open to jest. Jump into oblivion when I say the words trust me. Must be some kind of wonderful to see black space and stardust right in front of you. I am barely one of you. Time traveling rhyme patterns form another view. Fluid creation, fluent in equations. Moving out of stillness, making universal statements. I am water with a vibrating aura. Flyest light beam of the highest ranking order. I speak life, full moons at midnight. Magic at the altar, pure music, hidden rights. Quartz crystal, reflections of the spectrum. Magnetic force field, two poles in connection. Pulses of energy, bionic symmetry. The bond between universes, ionic synergy. I'm planets, dark matter, finite and infinity. First mother, back at it, the divine femininity.
Blessings. This is Priestess HetHeru, Join me as I examine and explore the unfolding age of Aquarius, culminating in year 2039 and its global impact on the consciousness of humanity. Join me with my very special guest as we remove the veil of death and destruction and its propaganda machinery for disempowerment. Join us as we deflate its power, providing healing solutions and methodologies for liberation, and the cultural framework for the restoration of Ma'at within us and on this earth. Join us.
Resurrection time, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, starting Tuesday, January 9th.
Higher consciousness. Let's go higher in our consciousness. Let's go higher, higher consciousness. Let's go higher in our consciousness. Let's go higher. The time's come for me to change the way I think, to change the way I feel. For me to go beyond what everybody thinks, what everybody says is real. Today I take a step into a time and space of peace and possibility. And here I'm gonna stay until I find my place, my true divinity. Higher consciousness. Let's go higher.
Okay, peace and blessings, and welcome back to Resurrection Time. This is your hostess, Priestess HetHeru, Saket Ra'atmut. Thank you for joining us again. And we're going to have a very special show today. We've been really blessed to have a wonderful series that we just did, focusing on the Black Panther film and its symbolic nature. And so we were able to bring together a number of people to decode the film, and it was very enlightening. It was very wonderful to see the work that came out of the film in terms of decoding it and really looking at the, many of the energies that we witness in terms of the spiritual energies, the HetHeru, and how they impacted on the people of Wakanda, and the technology that was utilized from their relationship with the HetHeru, specifically in the film Bast and Sekhmet. And so it was very profound to see, the analysis coming out, and that are still coming out, and the commentary, the articles, and the networks, the progress, the cultural reclamation and celebration of African culture that has come out of this film. So we wanted to continue on today, and the title of this particular show is Manifesting Wakanda in Real Time. And I think that's most significant for our people at this time, moving beyond the fiction and utilizing the inherent lessons and understanding the symbolic nature of the film, and really beginning to actualize what is necessary at this time of ascension that we are experiencing. So I'd like to open up with a prayer to Heru Macheti, because today is the spring equinox, which is a very powerful time in the Kemetic spiritual tradition. It's a time of purification and rebirth and cleansing and enlightenment. And so it's something that has been celebrated for thousands of years in the African tradition as a time when we are able to reconnect with our highest self. And in this case, as Heru Macheti specifically. And so I'd like to open up with a prayer, just giving acknowledgement to Heru Macheti to bless us in this work today, and to continue forward in the spirit of Heru Macheti. And I'll get into explaining that manifestation of the Creator, that nature, today, and its relationship to the spring equinox, and why we need to remember our spiritual culture and way of life, and utilizing the inherent lessons before us at this time. So I'd just like to say, Anecharak Heru Macheti, Anuk Tatirnit Heru Macheti, Anuk Heru Macheti. And really, what we have to do as a people is understand Heru once again within us, which is in the Christian pantheon congruent to Christ, the Christ head, Christ consciousness. In the Hindu pantheon, they call Krishna. In Ifa, they call Shango. So in many spiritual traditions around the world, we hear of this Godhead, this manifestation of the one supreme being within us that blesses us to experience higher consciousness or enlightenment. And so at this time of the vernal equinox, we had an understanding in our ancient culture and in our ancient tradition that Heru is to be revered, right? We gave praises, glory, salutations to Heru, and specifically Heru of what we call of the double horizon, Heru Macheti, which is actually what the Sphinx statue at Giza represents, which we call a Ka statue of that particular divinity. And we know that that is a very powerful shrine and a very powerful sacred site, which we call the Sakbu, or the Pyramids at Giza complex, which includes the Sphinx, which is the, again, the Ka statue. We call the Ka statue of this divinity, Heru, as Heru Macheti. And so it's a very significant time of transformation when we experience the sun crossing the equator at this time, and when we see an equilibrium coming into balance in terms of the length of day and night, which is a very powerful time for us to also come into balance with the light within us, and to balance it with the so-called darkness within us. What that means is that it's a time for us to go beyond our limitations, go beyond the ego, go beyond the fears, go beyond the restrictions, go beyond the impurities, go beyond the illogical belief systems, go beyond the negative conditionings, go beyond the trauma of the, Middle Passage and chattel slavery and the continuation of slavery that exists in the world today. It's a time to purify internally so that we can be aligned with our highest good and our highest self. And so today I'd like to give praises again to Heru Macheti that makes this time possible. That is the light that brings awareness within us, expanded awareness and inner vision, so that we can see our true nature once again and align with our highest truth, our highest power. Heru Macheti is a warrior divinity as well, removing obstructions from our path and destroying our enemies, protecting us from our enemies, which is very significant that African people once again employ their spiritual power to bring about the transformation that needs to take place and the restoration of Ma'at on this earth. It is not something that is, as Malcolm said, if a religion doesn't work for you right here, right now, to hell with that religion. And I think that's very key for African people to begin to understand that spirituality is not something that, we just place in a box, or that we utilize to, have feel-good moments and connect to the royalty of our ancestry without bringing about the restoration of Ma'at within us and on this earth, because they all go hand in hand. And for this to be a reflection of the greatness of our ancestors and a reflection of the greatness of Heru, then we must be about the business of bringing the balance. Heru Macheti is one of the divinities that brings the balance, as the balance comes today in terms of the balance of day and night, experiencing an equal duration of day and night at this spring equinox. We must come into balance once again, come into balance with our higher self, our true nature, and move beyond limitations and fears. And I think that, we have been duped from the trauma that our people have experienced in terms of the Holocaust, the Middle Passage, chattel slavery, and the continuation of the trauma at this time, on a global basis, that many African people and indigenous peoples in general are experiencing. And so we must really have an analysis at this time, looking at what is it that we must do at this time to get the favor once again of our highest self and our highest ancestors and the other beings of light who can assist us in bringing about peace on the earth. And first, we must focus on peace within. Or I should say, we have to do that in congruence with bringing about peace on the earth. But we must make it a priority that we have a relationship with our highest self. and not just intellectualize our spirituality. Because what has happened is due to the violent imposition of Christianity, we have moved away from our spiritual way of life, our spiritual traditions, and we have begun to become fearful, even being quote unquote spooked by our own spiritual traditions. And so when we begin to hear about, higher consciousness, and the ancestors and higher planes, or anything having to do with this so-called spookism that came about from, the European, imposition of Christianity, and their, violent imposition of their way of life on our people, then we begin to, have a problem with that. And I think one of the things that was so significant about the Black Panther film was that it brought that to light. It brought to light that, it was actually a blessing to be African-centered, to live in an African way, to experience ourselves and our culture and without any type of shame or, restrictions or looking for any type of external approval even of who we are and how we do, and that our relationship with the spiritual world, with the ancestral world, was integral to who we are. And in fact, that our blessings come from. The point being here is that we have to reclaim who we are for ourselves once again. And we have to go beyond intellectual masturbation. We have to really understand, our own cultural value system once again and way of life. The Ma'atian cultural value system is such that our human worth is based on how much we give reverence to our divinity, not based on how much we accumulate, meaning material things, material objects, even accumulating knowledge, which is not to say that knowledge is not something that we should have an understanding of or acquire. But it is to say that when we begin to only intellectualize, the spiritual knowledge, and we don't have a understanding or a practical application or a methodology to go deeper in understanding that, then it becomes a waste of the wisdom. Okay, so these things are very significant. This is a powerful time for us because it's the time of the Asarian resurrection, what we call the Asarian resurrection. Every 6,500 years, actually, we experience this. Within the galactic calendar, we understand that, which is based on a 25,920-year cycle, we understand we're moving now under the constellation of Aquarius, coming out of now the constellation from being under the constellation of Pisces. And so it's a very powerful time because we're in between these ages. And so this is also why we're seeing different things now unfolding in terms of the collective consciousness. We're seeing, just inklings of this age of Aquarius, this age of enlightenment, in terms of the enlightenment within us. We're becoming more aware. Case in point, the film and other things that are happening around us. We're becoming more consciously aware of certain things. Certain things are beginning to be exposed. Different things that were stagnant before are beginning to see movement. people are beginning to become more aware of their divinity. People are beginning to become more aware of the goddess divinity that they are. People are beginning to shed old belief systems and values. And so it's a very powerful time because, again, we're in between these ages, moving from under the constellation of Pisces to the constellation of Aquarius. And so it's a time when we see these things beginning to be, fertilized so that we can give birth to, a new age, which is what the age of Aquarius represents. This is in divine order, as all life is, even though we have forgotten that. But things are in divine order and in divine time, and everything happens for a specific reason. And I think that if we begin to understand the cycles of life, the seasons of life, and it's not always summertime, sometimes we have, the fall, which is a time of death. And sometimes we have the spring, which is a time of rebirth. Sometimes we have the summer, such is life. And so I think what's important, is that we learn the lessons inherent in the destructive cycle that we have seen, that we have experienced. So we don't have to keep repeating those lessons, so that we don't have to keep recycling the ma'afa, so that we don't keep having to, go through the same experiences and attract the same experiences over and over again. I've been serving the HetHeru as a priestess since 1999 when I was initiated. And I've seen a lot of things. I'm also trained as a past life regression therapist. And so I have seen quite a bit in terms of how our people, have energetically housed trauma and experienced, this trauma lifetime after lifetime. And so it is very important. And this is why in the, the affirmations of innocence, the laws of Ma'at, violence on the levels that we see on the earth is an abomination because it causes impact on an energetic and a spiritual basis that is often revisited in another lifetime in terms of what has not been healed. And so much of my work has been to be about that healing, be about that life, as the young people say, right? And really work with our people to heal what needs to be healed energetically as well. And I established about almost 10 years ago now an institute, an online institute called the Bennu Ascension Online Institute, which allows me to work internationally with our people, allows me to, reach people that I wouldn't normally reach, in different parts of, the diaspora and on the continent. And so that was my objective in terms of, giving birth to that particular institution. Prior to that, I had an institution in Philadelphia called the Ma'at Restored Project Collective, which was very successful in Germantown, Philadelphia. And we were able to form a network with the community and our people to bring about, some wonderful programs for the children and for the adult population in that area. So this particular institute, the Bennu Ascension Online Institute, provides the spiritual tools, the energetic tools, the sacred science, really teaches the philosophy and way of life of our ancient ancestors of the Nile Valley civilization. And it allows us to really align ourselves with Heru within us, to give birth to Heru within us. And so we very much are blessed to work with Ast, Uset, Isis, who I serve as well, and she provides us with this rebirthing process of Heru consciousness within us. And specifically, there is, a tool that we utilize, an Ascension tool, which is working with the frequency of blue light or the blue ray of Ast. And this is a very powerful technique that we use to heal the energy body, specifically the chakras. And so people are able to do very deep levels of work in terms of chakra alignment, chakra balancing, releasing debris from the chakra system. And also, this particular frequency of blue ray allows us to heal what's called the samskaras, which are energetic imprints from past incarnations that are stored in the energy body, particularly for people who experience trauma in previous lifetimes, which, of course, is many people, since we have had so many numbers, so many of our people who, passed in the Middle Passage and who were brought over to the Americas. And so I have seen, as a past life regression therapist as well, a lot of trauma, lynchings, all kinds of situations that African people have experienced. And in doing the regressions and the energy healing with them, we've seen some really good results. We also share in the school something called Kemetic sun gazing, which is, I know many people are familiar with sun gazing, but this is specifically the ritual that Kenaton and Nefertiti were doing during the 18th dynasty. And we work with the Wajet in terms of drawing in the chi of the sun and healing the various body systems, including the brain, the muscular system, the skeletal system, the internal organs, the reproductive organs. And so this is a very powerful technique that allows us to energize ourselves, to release debris, and in the internal organs in particular, where toxic emotions are stored. And so it allows us to release those toxins. And of course, the energy body, energy science, was something that we have mastered in, the Nile Valley. And so there were a number of different applications, modalities, sciences that came out of that. And so we understood, the energy body. We mastered an understanding of the energy body, of energy science, of energy in nature, and understanding the interrelationship and interconnection of life itself, of all living things. And so, there was a reverence of life, a reverence of Ra. This is what our culture is about, our spiritual culture. We give reverence to Ra, the life force. We understand that this must be harnessed, this energy, not to be abused or depleted, or, we did not develop technologies based on energy science that was destructive. And I think that's significant to understand today, to understand the energy body, to understand energy science, to understand the interrelationship, and how we are to govern the earth and not deplete the earth, not destroy the earth, not destroy living things, and to be about that life, be about the reverence of Ra once again. Very significant. This particular death culture reveres a pep, which is death and destruction. And so we have seen death and destruction all over the planet since it came into inception. And so this is problematic for our people, and we need to be about the business of bringing about balance on the earth once again. Our people are being destroyed as I speak. I will have a wonderful brother coming on later in the show, Brother Maurice Carney from Friends of the Congo, and he will be talking about this destructive nature and reality that has been unfolding in the Congo. And it's very important that we understand that the forces of destruction, these demons don't sleep. They don't take a nap, okay? And they do not have a identity problem. They know their death and destruction, their demons, they come here to destroy. And that's what they do. That's their nature. Okay, that's what they were designed to do. Is a part of the dialectic of this life. Okay, the so-called forces of darkness and the forces of light. Okay, but there is an inherent lesson in the science of dialectics, and when we think about that metaphorically, then we understand how charcoal becomes a diamond, the negation of the negation, as we say, and that must come about for our people by reclaiming once again who they are. So I'm going to bring the brother on. We're going to talk a bit, about, get an update about what is taking place. But I wanted to share with the Inner Light family more about what we can do proactively to bring about the restoration of Ma'at within us, and what, the shrine I serve shares in terms of, through my person, in the Bennu Ascension Online Institute, what we've been doing with students. And I have a student actually calling in now, Atenra, who will share some of his experiences as well. Atenra Hotep, are you there?
Hotep, Priestess. Can you hear me?
Yes, Hotep. Okay, so we're blessed today to really share, some of the things that we have been doing in terms of the work during this ascension process. And specifically, you have been training in the priesthood in the shrine of Atenra. And so I wanted you to come on today to share a little bit about your experiences. You don't have to get into the detail of, personal experiences that you don't feel comfortable sharing, because this is a healing that we have to go through to evolve. And so there are personal things, that everybody doesn't need to necessarily have that information. But just specifically the processes, I mentioned some of the tools, Ascension tools and technologies that we utilize in terms of working with the frequency of Blue Ray, of OST, and working with, which, by the way, let me just say, as a side note, that particular tool, that technology we utilize, also we do what's called soul, we work with soul fragments. Okay, so that means that you're able to integrate these various fragmented parts of the self that were that came about through different, situations of trauma, and that's a real powerful technique. And the other ritual that I mentioned that we do is Kemetic sun gazing. We also do a lot of other chi cultivation practices as well. And we also do a lot of work with the ancestors. And this work is very ancestrally based. We do ancestral rituals. And we utilize the sidereal calendar as well, which is very significant. There are specific holy days within the calendar that we utilize. And Ancestral Holy Day is one of them that is very significant as a time when we give offerings to the ancestors and commune with the ancestors, which is very central in African culture. And it's something that we need to reclaim, not just intellectualize, but actually practice. And actually at this time is a very powerful time because, you know, in doing this work, your ancestors can assist you, okay? And you can assist some of your ancestors who need assistance because there are different levels of ancestors. And so the ancestors who are enlightened, who have, you know, evolved to a certain level of consciousness, can assist you, you know, employing these particular ancestral rituals. And you can assist your ancestors who need assistance and your entire family line as well. And so that's the blessing of ancestral work. We also do something called Raja Yoga, which is the yoga of concentration. And this is a very powerful technique, practice, in which we still the mind and purify the mental body of mental chatter, which is very significant because oftentimes what we're dealing with is the subconscious, or what we call the superconscious mind, houses memory, okay? And when we have traumatic experiences, that tends to cause a lot of activity in terms of the mind. And we have a lot of impurities that are coming up and that are in the mind. And this, of course, causes inability to really focus and bring about focused intention, which is manifestation, you know, manifesting, you know, our intention on the physical plane. And also it, you know, impedes our ability to experience deeper levels of inner peace because the mind is always chattering, okay? So this particular practice allows us to be still, and stillness is very important. There's much wisdom that comes from stillness, even though this particular culture teaches busyness. You know, it salutes, you know, being busy, you know, which is, you know, the ignorance of this particular culture. And actually the highest, you know, guidance and wisdom that we can attain is within us. And it comes from being still so that we can actually hear, you know, the Creator within us. And we have to clear out, you know, do these different techniques and practices so we can clear out, so we can be clear vehicles to hear the divine. And so, Atanura, I brought you on today so that you can share a little bit about your experience. We don't have that much time because we're going to move into the second segment of the show at 4 o'clock, and I have I'm going to a station break in a little while to move into the second segment. So just share a little bit about, you know, I would say, why don't we start with the Ast work, you know, because you have a very strong relationship with Ast and you've done a lot of healing. Of course, she's a healing goddess, and she's the mother of HetHeru. And so you've done a lot of work with her. You want to share a little bit about your experience?
Yes, Hotep. Thank you so much, Priestess. I can say the Ast work, it's in stages. I have gone into different parts of my being, healing different traumas, from social conditionings, from negative thought forms, etheric cords that we hold to other things, attachments being, you know, one of my biggest things that I had to get over. I could also say that much of my life I lived not knowing that these things were actually going on within me until I actually went inside, or actually by the help of Ast, Nacharak, she helped me go inside myself to see what it is that was going on in these different areas of myself, whether it be in, you know, trapped inside of an organ, certain emotional imbalances, or, you know, in the energy body, or even in thought forms, things that I tell myself every day, you know, have to clear out, you know, how I speak to myself internally. In, you know, in every shape or form, I feel like she is a nurturing, she's a nurturing mother. So sometimes I have to almost learn how to nurture myself in a certain way, so that I can actually recognize that divinity that is within me.
Okay. One of the things that's relevant in what you said is the work that she does with the chakra system, which I think is, as I said before, very key. When we, you know, make our physical transition, you know, from, you know, this life, whatever is housed energetically that is unresolved, particularly outstanding, when we reincarnate, that energy continues and actually can shape our reality. You know, we can attract things, people, places, and things that are of that vibration. And so it's important to work with us to heal that energetic so that we don't have to keep recycling old energies. And so that's very significant. She also works with the subconscious and the superconscious mind. And so all of those memories and all of those things that we need to remember, you know, As is the goddess of the oceans as well. So if you think about the nature of the ocean, when there are pollutants in the water, it comes up on the sand. And so this is how she works in inundations within us and bringing up things to the surface that we need to be aware of and that we need to release, which is very significant. And actually the backdrop of this particular meditation is with sounds of the ocean we utilize, because As is the goddess of the oceans. And so it's a very deeply healing meditation and energy practice. And so it's broken into parts. And so this is what he's speaking about now. You want to share a little bit, and then we're going to go to a station break because I have to bring in my other guests, a little bit about your work in terms of the Kemetic sun gazing.
Yes, Hotep. With regards to this Kemetic sun gazing, it's harnessing the power of the sun and actually creating a relationship with that life force that is constantly being given to us. I feel like through my process of doing the sun gazing regularly, I've been able to, you know, thanks to Ra, have been able to bring that light within the energy body, within my own body and within my own energy body, and it's creating this light within, and I can see within myself what's going on. Like I can see if something is off in some way. That light is being brought within me, and I feel part of that light. It's really not creating a separate consciousness. It's actually creating an integrated feeling that I am that light, and that light is within me. And that I feel is the most significant thing that I've felt with the sun gazing.
What about, because there are different phases of the sun that we work with in Kemetic sun gazing, Kepara and Nefertemu are very different, and that's, you know, the morning sun and the setting sun. And there are different techniques, practices that we use for each time of the day when we do the sun gazing. What about specifically in terms of Nefertemu and doing the work to release toxins? What has been your experience with that?
Well, with Nefertemu, it's a much more, how you just described, it's a much more healing process. I felt, you know, during doing the Kepara time period of sun gazing, it's like an energetic, very strong, energetic, dynamic form. And when I do the Nefertemu sun gazing, it's like I'm going inside and healing everything. And I almost feel like that energy of the sun is carried on even throughout the night. I feel it throughout the night, I can feel the sun wherever it is at any given time of day. I've developed this connection with the sun that has been I'm so grateful to be able to experience that.
Yes, because the sun has divine intelligence, and the sun is the living being. So the sun, provides life, grants life, and is a nature. It's a manifestation, of the nature. So it is the visible sun, Aten Ra, that you're, giving reverence to in this particular work. And so you can utilize the sun's energy to heal, and in this particular work, in terms of the manifestation during the setting sun, which we call Nefertemu, that time of the day of the sun, you can release toxins that are in the various bodies. And so we work specifically with the sun gazing also in expanding the inner eye or psychic vision with the Wajet, which is what they call the third eye. So we actually work with that. I teach you how to absorb the chi of the sun into the so-called third eye, which is our first eye, and utilize it to disperse it into various body systems, to purify those systems and to regenerate the body systems. So you can experience higher levels of consciousness, because you cannot experience higher levels of consciousness. You cannot ascend if you're laden with all of these toxins, whether that be mental toxins, spiritual toxins, physical toxins. So we do a lot of purification in this work. Actually, we're doing a fast right now to detox. And so this is one of the tools and techniques that we utilize to purify, to detox, and to regenerate. So you can experience that ascension. So you can experience that lightness. So that you can experience that, that sunniness. Sometimes people see after you've done sun gaze and say, "Oh, you're so sunny, you're so bright." But they're actually seeing you eat, the sun, eat the sun food, we call, right? And store it. And I also teach you how to store the chi that you cultivate in these practices in the dandians, which are storage, I call them storehouses in the body, energy centers in the body where you can actually lock in this energy that you're cultivating. So that it can kick in at other times when you need it, and it can help to circulate throughout your system. So thank you so much, Aten Ra. We'll have you on again, and we'll have other students coming on, in the next weeks and months to share with you about some of their work. We're going to take a station break at this time, and when we come back, we're going to bring on Maurice Carney, who's going to share with us about his work in the Congo.
Congo crisis, in a nutshell. Since 1996, over 6 million people have died in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, so that we, in the Western world, can benefit from its resources. Congo is extremely rich in gold, diamonds, copper, cobalt, tin, uranium, coltan, and many other precious minerals. Congo has 64% of the Earth's coltan, a precious mineral that is needed for our modern electronics like iPhones, iPads, computers, laptops, PlayStations, Xboxes, Nintendos, jet engines, inkjet printers, and the list goes on and on. In 1946, the Strategic Minerals Stockpiling Act was passed to obtain and stockpile cobalt. With the largest reserves of cobalt on the planet, Congo was targeted. Cobalt is a strategic and critical mineral that is essential for our aerospace, military, and defense industries. As the United States and the United Kingdom provide financial aid and military aid to countries such as Rwanda and Uganda, these neighboring countries plunder Congo's natural resources as the death toll rises. In 4 studies, the United Nations implicated multinational companies in sourcing coltan from Congo, stating that these companies serve as the engine of the conflict in the DRC. As the world benefits from Congo's riches, Congolese men, women, and children continue to be raped, tortured, starved, displaced, and killed. In 2010, a leaked United Nations report cited crimes of genocide may have been committed by the Rwandan troops. There is very little media coverage on what is actually happening in Congo. When Congo is covered by the media, it is often about rebel groups committing mass atrocities. What these reports do not cover are the funding, training, and the arming of these rebel groups by foreign governments. Nothing is ever mentioned about the Western-backed coups, wars, assassinations, or the involvement of foreign corporations in the looting of Congo. 48 women are raped every hour. Millions are displaced. Over 6 million dead. Half are children under the age of 5. What is happening in Congo is a silent holocaust.
Yo, welcome to the Congo where the slayer slay and politicians robbing like every day for that diamonds and gold, timber and oil. Can't forget the coltan you find in your cell phone and PlayStation. Yo, it's a crazy situation, but since y'all don't get it, let me give an explanation. See, the Congo's so poor because it's so rich. All the minerals and the whole world, they want it. That's why you don't see it on the daily news, cause you be outraged if you saw the abuse. Like one Tanamo talk like Geronimo Pratt's son in hopes that we can see some action. Last year it was only covered by Anderson Cooper, but I guess you had something else to do, bruh. The 5 nights it aired from 10 to midnight. Maybe if it was on Oprah you'd have seen it ride, but old covered the Congo in 2005. Had Lisa Ling live on the scene, no lie. Said the violence there is the world's best secret. It was shown in broad day, but I guess you didn't peep it. Yeah, this is for Patrice Lumumba, Dr. Bennu Ascension, Dr. Galelo Wakabongo. Anybody out there fighting for the Congo to be free, yo, let's go! Welcome to the Congo where the slayers slay and innocent folks dying like every day for all the jewelry we buy in the USA, son. And families there don't stop breathing in the morning. Welcome to the Congo where the slayers slay and innocent folks dying like every day for all the jewelry we buy in the USA, son. And families there don't stop breathing in the morning. See, I've been talking about this since I was 8 years old, before Ye rolled diamonds from Sierra Leone. First I took the academic route and wrote a paper. Yo was like, man, that stuff's too deep, so make it safer. So I made it artistic and put it in a poem. Y'all was like, you ain't been on Def Jam, so go home. So I made it simple as can be in a rap. I even went down south and caught the Luda track. But for some of y'all, this is still too dense. Might as well be talking another tongue like French. Parce que tout le monde sait, je parle la vérité. Je veux seulement liberté pour Congolais. I say this in hopes that y'all stand up and act. Cause if you silent on the Sudan and the Congo Jack, when they come and rape your women, who gon' have your back? So welcome to the Congo, here's your passport back. With your help, I know we'll get free someday. Congo for the Congolese and Lumumbi, A. Yeah, man, you know what I'm saying? You gotta get out there and fight for the Congo. You ain't got to be Congolese, you ain't gotta be black. Anybody around the world, you gotta stand up and act, man. Congolese are human beings too. If you ain't seeing on the news, don't mean you ain't got nothing to do. Welcome to the Congo where the slayers slay and innocent folks dying like every day for all the jewelry we buy in the USA, son. And families there don't stop breathing in the morning. Welcome to the Congo where the slayers slay and innocent folks dying like every day for all the jewelry we buy in the USA, son. And families there don't stop breathing in the morning.
For the best in metaphysical, spiritual, and holistic programming, you're listening to InnerLightRadio.com, the healing frequency.
Welcome back to Resurrection Time, and we have Brother Maurice Carney on the line.
Hello.
Okay, Hotep, brother. How are you?
Hotep.
Oh, so glad you could make it.
Yes, my the television show I was doing ran a little bit over.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. So just wanted to share a little bit about you and your work in the Congo. And
Yes.
we don't have a lot of time, but if you can bring to the Inner Light family, the work that's going on there, the crisis that is unfolding, and how people can, assist in that situation. I know we have talked about some things that we're doing to assist in that situation. But can you share a little bit about yourself for those who are not familiar and bring to light some of those things?
Sure, and you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes, the Congo, the country we're talking about, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the former Zaire, it's a country that is literally and figuratively in the heart of Africa. If you liken the African continent to the human body, Congo is its heart. It's been at the that our people have experienced from the Maafa beginning in the 1400s right through to the breaking up of the African continent, where European powers established their spheres of influence in the late 1800s. We've seen that the Congo has been it's played a central role, and has been targeted for special destruction of African people. In fact, it's a country where people of African ancestry has suffered the most since the period of enslavement. From 1884 to 1885 to 1908, an estimated 10 to 15 million Congolese lost their lives in mad scramble for natural resources. At the time, it was rubber that was needed for the rubber industry in the West, and bicycles, automobiles. So it's a very special place that embodies both, on the one hand, the tragedies that we see that is unfolded on the African continent, and on the other hand, the potential that exists for Africa to gain control of its resources and determine its future. So Congo, located in the heart of the African continent, a country that straddles the equator, a country the size of Western Europe, the only country on the continent where we have 9 other African countries bordering it, one of the largest countries in the world with a population of 80 million people, and arguably the richest piece of real estate on the planet, where there's an estimated $24 trillion worth of natural resources there, where you have both precious and strategic minerals that are vital to the functioning of global industries we find in the Congo. So that explains why Congo is so critical today. It explains why there's been such tremendous loss of black life in the Congo, not only, as I've shared, in the late 1800s or early 1900s, but today, from 1996 to the present. There's an estimated 6 million Congolese who have lost their lives as a result of the scramble for her natural wealth. And we hardly know about it, and that's not by accident. We hardly know about it because black lives are less valued and less talked about. We hardly know about it because the multinational corporations that benefit from Congo's coltan and cobalt and uranium and all the minerals that they have do not want the world to know that they're plundering the country at the expense of the Congolese people, where we have our cell phones and laptops and the batteries in our electric cars that we use, all that, we have those benefits because Congo has been robbed, has been plundered, has been looted by Western corporations. So that's it's vital that we understand the nature and the scope of the plunder that's unfolding in the Congo in particular, and on the African continent as a whole. And if, sister, we're able to control those resources, as Patrice Lumumba had envisioned before he was overthrown and subsequently assassinated by the CIA and the Belgians and the United Nations and European powers, if Africans control the tremendous wealth that is found in the Congo, if the incredible human potential that exists in the Congo is realized, it could fundamentally transform not only the African continent, but the African world. So in the short time we have, really like to convey to the listening audience what is at stake in the Congo. And what is at stake in the Congo is not just the future of the Congo or the future of Africa, but the future of the African world. We're talking about a country that has everything that we need as people of African ancestry in order to control, determine our affairs, and fundamentally transform the material conditions that we face on the African continent and throughout the African world.
We had brothers join us a few weeks ago, Brother Rutendo from Zimbabwe and Brother Daruba Ben Wahad, and they were talking about the situation in southern Africa, particularly in Zimbabwe.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, all of this has been unfolding with the military coup, and now what is happening in South Africa, new president. What is your take on the situation as it unfolds there now, in terms of change, transformation that you see, and how that may or may not impact happening there in Congo?
Yeah, I've been following the situation, not just in Zimbabwe, but what's unfolding in Southern Africa. And first and foremost, and this is hardly spoken of in the media, we saw under Mugabe where Africans retook control of the land, right? That's the enduring legacy of Mugabe with the land reformation after the Europeans reneged on the Lancaster House Agreement, where the British and the United States were supposed to put money on the table to pay off those white farmers who had stolen the land in the first place. We saw Mugabe move boldly in putting the land back in the hands of the people, the rural people, the ordinary people. And irrespective, in spite of what happens in Zimbabwe, that will not be turned around. The people will defend the land. So that's on the one hand. Now, that should serve as a model, and that has been the fear of the West, that the land reclamation project in Zimbabwe would influence the people in Azania in South Africa. And we see rumblings now where with the advent of the economic freedom fighters, breathing life into the African National Congress's Freedom Charter, which call for the nationalization of the resources of South Africa, the return of the land to the people. So we're hopeful that with the success that we saw with the land reclamation in Zimbabwe, that will actually influence the march forward in South Africa, not just in platitudes, as Ramaphosa has shared with us lately, but in actuality, as espoused by the economic freedom fighters, as espoused by the Pan-African Congress. So we see that as a model for not only Southern Africa, but the continent as a whole, where Africans control their resources, for the benefit of Africans. Now, with the changes in South Africa with Ramaphosa, with Mnangagwa in Zimbabwe, and Lorenzo in Angola, those are the major players in the Southern African development community. To my chagrin, they were all found at Davos recently. And that raises concerns about their neoliberal bent. Because rest assured, if you are found at Davos, if you're invited to Davos and you accept the invitation, it's like being invited into the capitalist, imperialist logic. And that means that when you go there to Switzerland, you're going to be coming back with ideas of imposing the so-called free market principles,
yes. And
reducing.
We're open for business.
Open for business.
Yes.
So that should raise.
Donald Trump repeated those words. I don't know if you saw that when he was at the conference as well.
Yeah, so that raises concerns for me in that with the removal of Mugabe and that signals a shift to this neoliberal finance capital march on the part of these Southern African leaders. And we know Ramaphosa, we know his history. He's a product of, at least his recent history anyways, is a product of black empowerment, economic empowerment, where he's become a part of the petty bourgeoisie, the elite class that has benefited from what scraps that the white capitalists have given to him and making him put him on board of directors and giving him shares in companies, a number of those companies who are exploiting the resources in the Congo. So it just says to us that we should be even more vigilant now. We should engage the people more, those people who are Kwame Nkrumah called the oppressed class, those who have been victims of neocolonialism. We have to step up our game here and engage them and to defend the victories that have been claimed in Zimbabwe, and also to fight in solidarity in an effort to advance the People's March, a march that's grounded in controlling and determining the affairs, controlling the land, and benefiting from the resources, or assuring that the resources benefit the people.
Let me just tie this all together here. We talked a little bit in our private discussion about the article that came out Friends of the Congo website.
Yes.
Around the Black Panther film. And I
yes.
think it's relevant, in terms of this discussion and the, increased awareness amongst our people for controlling their own resources and
yes.
colonization. Being more aware, of what is taking place in terms of the colonial nature of many of these countries that we're talking about. What would you say, because that was a very powerful article, and there was quite a bit in it, and we'd like you to come on again and share more insight into that article, maybe bring the brother on as well. What would you say in tying this together is relevant at this time in terms of the film and some of the things that it addressed?
Yes, well, it was good to see the film pay homage to the ancestors and held the rituals up front as something that ought to be embraced as a positive feature of our culture and our heritage. Unfortunately, the film didn't do justice to the role that colonization, imperialism, neocolonization, the role that the Central Intelligence Agency has played and the U.S. government at large in destroying the aspirations of Africans, whether we're talking about the assassination of Lumumba in the Congo or the overthrow of Nkrumah in Ghana, whether we're talking about the assassination of King, the assassination of Malcolm. What we see whether we're on the African continent or here in the United States. Our leaders, those are shining stars. Those who were uncompromising, those who sought the liberation of our people, came under withering attack. And that withering attack has set us back. However, what we do know that today with this younger generation, we have to share with them the opportunities that exist for us to strike our own blow and to pick up the struggles that the imperialists and the capitalists thought they'd how can I say, they had won in getting rid of some of our key leaders. So what this film has done, sister, is put Africa front and center again, put the question of colonization, and it also laid out for us the possibilities that exist on the African continent. If we can get our young people to see Africa positively, if we can get our young people, as Malcolm said, you said, to love Africa, he said that if we cannot hate the tree and not hate the roots of the tree. The tree is us. The roots is Africa. So if that film works to help us love ourselves and love Africa, then I think that puts us in a position to wage a fight that ultimately result in the liberation and independence of the African continent and people of African ancestry. So I know the time is short, so that's what I can say quickly without getting into too much details around the article that we have on our website at friendsofthecongo.org.
Yes, and you can, what is the website so they can...
It's at friendsofthecongo.org, and when you get on that website, you'll see the blog. You can click on the blog link, and it'll take you right to the article where we look at the different iterations of the Black Panther, and especially with a particular focus on the series that was written by Larry Hudlin, that was run on Black Entertainment Television, BET, which laid out a starker contrast between the anti-imperialists within the Black Panther family and the role that imperialism was playing in keeping Africans down. You didn't see any cohabitation or any collaboration between the CIA and the Black Panther in Hudlin's series. He made a sharp contrast between the role of the CIA and those who are fighting for liberation in Africa. And the CIA is no friend of Africans. The U.S. has never supported any liberation movement on the African continent. The U.S. has been an obstacle to the liberation of the African continent, and that's an important lesson for our young people to understand, so that we're clear about what liberation looks like. We're clear about what the fight against imperialism, the fight against neocolonialism looks like. We're clear about those who we need to embrace, the Lumumbas and their heritage coming out of the Congo, the Sankara and that heritage coming out of Burkina Faso, Felix Mumé and that heritage coming out of...
Brother Maurice, I'm sorry, and I kept interrupting you. I really want to have you back in next week. We don't
yes.
I want you to give out your contact information, and hopefully you can join us next week. And we can
sure. I'll give a website that people can go to and keep up with the work that we're doing as we fight for liberation out of the heart of Africa. It's called Telema. It's a Lingala word, which means stand up. Telema, TELEMA.org. TELEMA.org. There, go to that website, you sign up, and you are automatically plugged into the movement that's unfolding in the heart of Africa, a movement by young people who are tapping into Lumumba and Lumumba's teachings and ideals.
And I'd like to just share that if you'd like to reach me, you can reach me at the Bennu Ascension Institute at gmail.com. We have online Ascension classes going on this week, and we have a lot of things that we're sharing right now about this particular Ascension process as we move under the constellation of Aquarius in year 2039. I'd like to thank our wonderful guest today. And thank you for joining us, family. And please join us next week as we continue this journey forward. Shemotep, peace and blessings.
Let's go higher, higher consciousness. Let's go higher, inner consciousness. Let's go higher. I'm gonna touch the sky.